Because the reality is we want to make our job description different than what it really is, right? And I want to give you a definition for what it is we do for a living that will just simplify it for you. And so here goes. Here's what we do for a living when you're doing it right. You ready? Pens up. We interpret current conditions such that the client can make the best business decision possible. Our job description is that we interpret current conditions such that the client can make the best business decision possible. And I can almost guarantee you that if you will memorize that and make decisions about what to do, what not to do, how to move forward, what questions to answer, what questions to push to others, like their attorney, or like the inspector, or like the town, right? You help the client interpret, you figure out, help them figure out what's going on. That another way to say that is you're the options people, right? You give them the options. You help interpret based on what's currently going on, what the options might be. And then they and no one else gets to make choices about how they move forward. I will tell you that one of my biggest concerns as a real estate broker and a real estate coach is how many real estate agents get trapped in that spot of, my job is to advise. Well, I have to advise my clients. Rick, here's the scenario. How should I advise my clients? I don't know what to advise my clients to do. And my answer is always the same. I wouldn't advise them to do anything. I would point out to them what the options are and ask them in this scenario what they think the best choice is for them. It's different, right? Those two things are different. Does that make sense to everybody? Anybody want to argue about it? It's Thursday night. Let's do all the arguing on Tuesday. So if you really want to argue about it, I'll be more spry on Tuesday. Nah, it's okay. We can dukes up now if you want. Right, but
it seems like a very broad statement. Repeat it one more time, please.
Absolutely. To interpret current conditions such that the client can make the best business decision possible. That's the job description. Notice it doesn't say anything about marketing, doesn't say anything about negotiating, doesn't say anything about helping a buyer find a seller or a seller find a buyer. Those are all things, those are all activities that live inside of that broader description, right? But that broader description is supposed to point you in a direction on how you do those activities. How do you market a property? Well, you market a property based on helping the client make the best decision possible based on current conditions.
Well, in terms of buying, right? If you're a buyer's agent,
yeah,
how would you apply that, Rick?
So here's a question that and we'll talk about this in our buyer unit next week, right? When you go to write up an offer, any of you who have ever worked one time, even with a buyer, what's the first thing after the buyer says, I want to buy that house? What's the very next question they ask you?
How much should we offer?
Exactly right. How much should we offer? Right? And based on the job description I just gave you, your job is to help them interpret the current conditions in the market so that they can make the best decision possible about what to offer. And far too many real estate agents say things like, well, I think you need to offer full price. Oh, I think 275 is a good price. I think $1,050,000 works really well. Well, I think anything less than $1,500,000, you might be at risk. I'm going to tell you what, I've done it both ways. One of them puts you at risk, one of them does not. One of those ways actually engages the client such that they make better decisions so that they win more of the time, right? Because they're engaged instead of just listening to you. And the argument I sometimes get is, well, but we're supposed to be the experts. Well, you are the expert. You're the expert on helping them understand what's going on in the market so that they can make really smart decisions about winning that particular property. And trust me when I tell you, we're gonna do an entire evening on negotiating offers, negotiating multiple offers, and helping you through all of that. So let's not get ahead of ourselves, right? But there is your definition for your job description. I'm sorry if it's different than some of you thought. That is it. And trust me when I tell you, if you will believe that and behave and abide by that, it will save you. Jerome asked before, like, where's the CYA in some of this? I just gave you a big portion of CYA. If you will behave living under that description of what you do, that's one of the best CYAs that exists. Frankly, I had never really thought of it that way. But the idea of that being your CYA, that being your safety net, that kind of rocks. Okie dokie. Whew. What time is it? Is it time to go yet? Holy Christmas. All right. Let's get back to our source of business because we do have to wrap source of business. Were there any questions on what we talked about in terms of open houses? We have a smidge more to cover on open houses, but any questions about anything we covered yesterday on open houses? I got a question offline, which I hope you don't mind. I'm going to share online because it's a great question, and I think other people may have been thinking it. Right? I said something earlier in our conversation around open houses being a real pillar of your business. If you're really looking for open houses to drive lead generation and then conversion in your business, that the numbers say that you should be doing a minimum of 8 open houses a month, which is about 100 a year. Right? It's an enormous amount of open houses. And the question I got after the fact was, answer me this. How on earth, if you're doing 8 open houses a month, and there's typically 4 weekends in a month, right? You're doing open houses both days. Like, when on earth do you actually meet with a buyer? And it's a great question. It's a great question. Here's the answer. You know what FIO stands for? Figure it out. Right? You figure it out. I can tell you that so for those of you in the Stanford Market Center, your team leader, Steve Scott, used to be mine and Debbie's buyer's agent. Before he was your team leader, he was our buyer's agent. And he was a $200,000 to $250,000 a year buyer's agent, which means he was a $450,000 to $500,000 a year GCI agent if he were solo. $250,000 a year for a buyer's agent when you're only working buyers and you split it 50-50 with the team, that's a good chunk of change, which means he was rocking and rolling. And I will tell you that I watched what he did to make sure, because he was a big open house person. He got a lot of business from open houses. He was good at open houses. He knew how to convert at open houses. And part of what he understood was open houses are a numbers game, right? We can have all the conversation you want about how we push traffic to open houses. The reality is, when you push a ton of traffic to open houses, sometimes a ton of traffic shows up and sometimes it doesn't, right? That's just real. When you are proactive in pushing traffic to your open house via making sure it's posted as often as possible online, making sure that you have mass emails going out to your database just in case your database is interested. I always liked either little postcard invites the couple of days before or call arounds the day before to the neighbors, right? Driving traffic, posting it where you possibly post it. So when you drive traffic, you don't always get the results you're looking for. Knowing it's a numbers game, do you see that the more you do, the better your odds of finding great opportunities at open houses? Right? If you do one and no one comes and you decide that open houses don't work, do you see how that's probably not a large enough sample size? When you do 100, I guarantee you, if you don't get a ton of business out of doing 100 open houses, there's something else wrong. There's something else wrong. You're either literally speaking a foreign language to people who come in and they have no idea what you're saying, or you're like, maybe you spit when you talk, or I don't know what the issue is, right? But there's some other issue that we have to address if you're doing that volume of open houses and you're not obtaining opportunity in business. So here's what Steve used to do. He used to, in the busy months, like April, May, June, and then again September, October, he would start with his buyers at 8:30 or 9 o'clock on a Saturday and a Sunday, because in those busy times, he would do 3 to 4 open houses every weekend and work with buyers. So he would work with buyers from 8:30 or 9 o'clock till about 11. He'd start his first open house, 11:30. He'd do that for an hour and a half to 2 hours. He'd take a quick little break for a half hour, kind of grab lunch and move signs around, do another open house from say 1:30 to 3:30 or 2 to 4, and then he'd meet with another buyer at the end of the day. So he still got 2 buyers in and 2 open houses. And during those real heavy months, he would oftentimes do that Saturday and Sunday. So he's got 4 buyers covered and he's got 4 open houses continually driving new opportunities. Here's the thing. If you're brand new to the business and you don't have any other business going on, I don't know why you just wouldn't do an open house at something every single day. Like do an open house 7 days a week and find business. Can you do Tuesday open houses? Yeah, of course you can. Like do a Tuesday drive time open house. If you can find a property near an elementary school, do a Wednesday morning. Everyone's driving their kids to school. Now, maybe not, people aren't going to school as much these days, so maybe there's less traffic, but you're getting my point, right? So just find additional opportunities. And here's the thing. Many of you don't have enough buyer business right now to wave the flag of how am I ever going to meet with all these buyers on the weekend? And I don't say that in a judgmental way, it's just a fact, right? Many of you don't have the volume of buyer business that would prevent you from doing multiple open houses on the weekends. When that becomes a problem, which by the way happens when you start doing multiple open houses consistently weekend after weekend after weekend, right now all of a sudden you start to build this buyer pool and you think, oh my goodness, how am I going to do all this? I would rather you come to me and say, help me figure out this scheduling issue that I now have, rather than us have a conversation around, I don't know where to find business, right? Because I just told you where to find business. You just have to actually take the action and do it. Yes? Margaret says, I'm going to start doing 4 a weekend if it kills me. I can see it in her eyeballs. Well, and here's the thing. If you don't want to do 4 a weekend, do 1 a weekend, right? Many people aren't even doing at least 1 a weekend. So start there. Do 1 a weekend consistently for 90 days and see what happens, and then move it to 2. We always get to have a conversation around, well, which is better, Saturdays or Sundays, or do the Tuesdays work? Do the Wednesday mornings work? Guys, it all works. It all works. You just have to do it. There's no better time. You just have to drive traffic to the open house and keep hosting it. I'll tell you one other trick that I have learned that kind of came from our whole kind of lockdown scenario. And that's the idea of utilizing technology for open houses. Now you can decide that means virtual open houses, which means you're alone in the house and you're giving a tour of the house online, and you kind of like do a Facebook Live and have people kind of check that out. I'm not 100% sure I'm convinced that's a great way to convert, however, right? Instead, what I would do is I would do the virtual open house. Maybe you do it Facebook Live, maybe you don't. For me, I would say don't do it Facebook Live. Film the virtual open house and then post it on Facebook or post it someplace else, and then have people click, like show a smidge, show the first 10 seconds, and then say click here for the entire video. And then the click here brings them to a landing page where they have to register, and then they get the whole video, right? That's how you can do virtual open houses and actually grab contact information. Does that make sense to everybody? Here's the other thing. Some of you know Stephen Gendel. He's the operating partner. He has my role in the Livingston, New Jersey KW office. And one of the things that he does that I think is so awesome is he does like power open houses. And so what he does is he blasts out to everyone and their sister that he will be at this particular property from 12 noon to 12:45. He doesn't hang around for 2 hours. He tells people exactly when he's going to be there. He gives them 45 minutes. He maybe sticks around for another 10, and then he moves on. He's either so the other way that you can work buyers into heavy open house schedules is do more like power open houses. If you tell people that you're there from 1:30 to 3:30, they can kind of leisurely show up whenever in that time period. Or if you're anything like me when I was doing open houses, they come at 3:40, right? When the last light has been turned off and I'm in the car with the car running. Oh, can we just run through? Right? The fun news today is if you have a virtual open house opportunity, you can simply say to them, you know what, do me a favor. I have an appointment I have to get to. Give me your contact information. See what I did there? Give me your contact information, and I will send you the virtual open house. You can watch it over and over and over and over and over again in the comfort of your own home. And I can get to my next appointment, right? Be careful that you don't make decisions based on desperation. Why do I say that? Because I've been in that spot, right? You sit in an open house and you feel like it didn't go well, and you think, okay, so someone's coming in literally 5 minutes after I'm supposed to close. Maybe this is my $1.5 million cash buyer. Maybe this is why I was supposed to be here. Just be careful about that, right? Be careful about the idea that something is better than nothing. That's a dangerous slope that you start to slide down. So I love Stephen Gendel's idea of power open houses. I'm there for 45 minutes. So I get there, bing, bam, boom. And have a little button on however you're advertising that says, missed the open house, click here. Click here to contact me for the virtual version. Can't make it in that 45-minute period of time? Click here. Right? We have to continue to think of new ways to make sure that we can safely get people through a house, but still get them there. Right? Still get them there. I know during our lockdown period, we were talking a lot around sight unseen offers. For the most part, right now, it's not quite as necessary, right? We've learned how to do things safely and not have to say no to stuff. So just make sure all those protocols are in place. Do me a favor, test out the Power Open House. I think you're going to love it. Because part of the reason agents don't love open houses is they feel like it's half their weekend, right? It's a 2 or 3 hour open house with a half hour on each side. All right, well, what if you just shrunk it down to 45 minutes? One of the things that Stephen does is he does 2 different houses in the same 2 hours. He'll do two different price points or two different houses. He'll make sure that he says to the people who come to the first one, hey, by the way, in about 40 minutes, I'm going to be over at this other one, so join me over there. Now he has two opportunities to have a conversation. Right? What's that bold law? All work expands to fill the time allotted or the time allowed. This is a version of that. If you give people 2 or 3 hours to come and visit your open house, they'll dritz in at their leisure. If you tell them, let's go, hop 2, I'm opening at 12:01. We're going to push people through 10 minutes at a time. We got 5 slots and we're out at 12:45. Guess what? People who are serious, they will show up and they will fit into that structure. Stephen's been doing it for years. Questions, comments, concerns? Want the secret to converting at open houses? Here's the secret to converting at open houses. The first secret is not such a secret. Follow up, follow up, follow up, right? I've said that 100 times in the last 2 weeks. Right? The money is in the follow up. You don't make money by meeting new people. You get money with how you make money by how you follow up and convert those same people. Lead generation is only as good as your lead conversion skills that will follow it, right? You've got to generate all the leads, but if you won't do anything with them and you're not converting them, right? All those leads just sit in the bucket. Now you've just got a bucket of names. So here's the secret to open houses. You've got to treat people who attend open houses not like prospects. You've got to treat them like they're already signed clients from the minute they walk in the door. And that big surprise, if you've been paying attention for the past 5.5 nights, this will not come as a surprise to you. It starts with, how can I help you? How can I help you? How can I go out of my way to make sure that you are taken care of while you're here and with the remainder of your home search? How can I help? How can I help? How can I help? If someone comes in and they're represented by somebody else, guess what? It's still the same. How can I help? How can I help? How can I help? You know why? Because sometimes people come in and they say they're represented and they're not really represented. Right? When you walk into the Gap and there's someone standing at the door, what does that person say when you walk in after hello? Can I help you? What are you looking for? And what do most of us say? I don't know. I'm just looking. Like I'll come back to you when I'm certain. Right? And what you're thinking is, leave me alone. Please stop accosting me when I walk in the door. Well, think about open house attendees the same way. If you walked into the Gap and the person said, hi, it's so good to see you. If there is anything I can do to help you, I'm going to be standing right here. Now you walk and you think, oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. You're not pushed for an answer right away, right? So be careful about that. How can I help? How can I help? How can I help? How can I help? I'm curious. How long have you been searching for a property? I'm curious, do you live locally? I'm curious, do you own or rent? Right? Just some questions that during the course of a conversation you may want to throw out there. Hey, I'm curious, do you have an online tool that you can utilize without any real estate agents to figure out what properties are for sale and how much they're for sale for as you're driving around? Would it be helpful if I gave you an app that would do just that? And oh, by the way, if you find one on there, if you push like the red bat phone button, it goes directly to me and I can get you answers and information. I'm curious, would a tool like that could potentially save you hours of time and thousands of dollars in your home search, that's a script, by the way. Would a tool like that could save you hours of time and potentially thousands of dollars in your home search be a benefit to you? Here you go. Here you go. What other questions do you have? None? You're ready to leave? Great. How can I be of assistance moving forward? You see how it's all permission based? You see how it's all coming from contribution instead of like leaping on them and attacking them and trying to sign them as clients? Again, people can feel that and it's just unappealing to them. They'd rather know, they'd rather go home and on the drive home say things like, wow, we saw 4 open houses today. Do you remember that lady in the last one? I think her name was Alex. Oh my goodness. She couldn't have been more helpful. Do we have her number? Because I think frankly we should call her. Of everyone we met today, I think we should call her back. Or even if they don't have that conversation, you've left them with that feeling so that later that night when Alex calls to say it was such a pleasure to meet you, I just wanted to make sure that you had my contact information in case you need any help in your home search. And yes, by the way, I did say later that night. I did not say wait until Monday morning. You want to convert at open houses? Make the follow-up call sooner than everybody else does. Don't send an email or a text. It's just not personal. Right? The phone call means that you're taking the time. And again, here's the script. It was so lovely to meet you. It was my pleasure to meet you earlier. I just wanted to follow up and say that and make sure that you had my contact information. That's the phone call. You're not calling to see if they like the house. You're not calling to see if they want to go out next weekend. You're not calling to see if just like the for sale by owner, remember that whole process? Well, this is just like that. You're just calling to say, thank you so much for kind of gracing my world today. It was so lovely to meet you. If there's anything I can do, please note, I'm a phone call or a text away. Here's my info. Have a lovely evening. My experience is that sometimes when you do that, they don't let you off the phone that quickly because now they have questions. Hey, do you have just a minute? Because we did drive past a house after we left you, but no one was there. Oh, you know what? Absolutely. How can I help? Do you happen to have the address? Would it be helpful if I sent that information to you? Would it be, by the way, when you grabbed my app before, were you able to look that up on the app? Would it be helpful if I explained how to find that information on my app? Getting it? Right? It's not hard. It's just a specific way of speaking to people that doesn't have you feel like a salesperson. It doesn't have them feel like they are prey. Instead, it makes them feel as though you are there to serve. I'm telling you what, guys, it is the secret to business and it is the secret to life. When you show up ready to serve others, the world opens up and it just takes off. Again, I know that may sound kind of dorky. It's what I've experienced in my life. The second you make a decision that you show up to serve versus any other decision, versus any other reason why you might be there, right? How can I help? How can I help? How can I help? I love follow-up systems for open houses. I personally like short, aggressive follow-up systems for open houses. What do I mean by short and aggressive? I mean, if you meet somebody on a Sunday, your first touch is that thank you phone call that Sunday night. Your second touch might be an email with some additional suggestions of houses that they might want to take a look at on Monday. Your third touch might be a text on Tuesday, just making sure that they received the information. Maybe you friend them on Facebook on Wednesday, and you make another phone call on Thursday saying, hey, just wanted to touch base. My schedule is filling up for the weekend, and I wanted to see if there was any opportunity for us to meet to take a look at additional properties, or offer a buyer consult. I like that kind of everyday touch base, not like stalker, like get a restraining order person. Just offer some help, check in, offer some help. Because I'm going to guarantee you, the other people they saw at the open houses, they're going to make an outbound at some point during the week, but likely only one. And remember, I said this a bunch of times already, you're always modeling behavior. So what if you modeled behavior to someone who was looking for assistance as the person who is most interested in assisting them? That's just a mindset thing, right? Some of you are thinking, oh my goodness, I feel like such a total pest. Please note, that's your mindset, not theirs. Don't make decisions based on how it would feel to you. Make decisions based on what we know the business realities are when you do these things consistently. I'll tell you a quick story. I had when I lived in Stamford for a while after I moved up from New York City, and we were selling our house in Stamford. I lived over by the hospital on St. George Avenue, for those of you who know Hubbard Heights. I lived right over there, and we were selling that house and moving north, like into the boonies where I live now in Ridgefield. At least back then it seemed like the boonies. Now, not so much. But I remember moving here originally thinking, oh my goodness, where on earth have I moved? I went from the Upper West Side to Stamford, which was at least sort of a city, to like the middle of nowhere in Ridgefield. Like, what am I doing here? But I became a country boy. So the idea was, we were going to start looking at open houses before we engaged a realtor. And we first started looking in North Stamford because we thought maybe the move wouldn't be quite as far north. And we met somebody by the name of Elsa Bush. She was with Coldwell Banker. I will never forget her as long as I live. I don't know if she's still in the business. She was quite a good chunk older than me, so I'm not even sure that she's still around. But someone should look her up, Elsa Bush, Coldwell Banker, just to see if she's still practicing. And it was Busch, for those of you who are looking. And the idea, so we met her at an open house one Sunday. I am not exaggerating when I tell you that I heard from Elsa Bush every single Friday before 5 o'clock for 11 and a half months. She called me every single Friday after she met us for 11 and a half months to say the same thing. Hey, just checking in, wanted to see how your home search was going. It was so lovely to meet you at such and such a house. Curious to know if you were around this weekend. She would tell me if she was hosting additional open houses. She would tell me what open house she was hosting in that message. I'll be at this. If it would be easier for you to stop by, I'd love to see you and connect and see where things are going. For 11 and a half months. Now, we had kind of abandoned the search in North Stamford. We had started looking in Ridgefield. We weren't going to utilize her as a buyer's agent for the sale of our property. And this is the really important piece of this story. We did not return her phone call one time in all 11 and a half months. Not once. But here's what's fun. When it came time to interview people to list my house in Stamford, the first phone call I made was to the guy who actually sold it to us, to tell him that he was not getting an opportunity. Because we had decided to be a for sale by owner for 4 weeks. And during that whole period of time, he never once bothered to call us to say, hey, how can I help you get this done? He was just bent that we didn't call him first, that we decided to try and sell it on our own. So when the for sale by owner thing didn't work, The first phone call I made was to him to say, I just wanted to let you know that we're going to be listing the property with someone else that's not you. You know, again, nothing personal, it's just a business decision. Thank you so much. The second call I made was to Elsa Bush. 11 and a half months later, I thought to myself, you know what? If this woman has the systems in place to call me every single week for 11 and a half months to check in on me, see if I needed help, she absolutely deserves an opportunity to come and talk to me about listing my house. People always ask, did she get the listing? It'd be a better story if she did, but again, the transparency part of me will just tell you the truth. She did not get the listing. We listed it with people that we went to church with. However, that's kind of besides the point, right? Because the idea is, how are we finding appointments? She found an appointment by hosting an open house and following up for 11 months, for nearly a year. And it took that year for her to get that listing appointment. She had every opportunity to list that property. We just decided on somebody different. See how it works? And she was helpful. Always offering her services. Questions, comments, concerns about open houses or about Elsa Bush? No, we good?
It looks like Elsa is still alive and living in Naples, just so you know.
Living in Naples, Florida. Good for Elsa. Oh my goodness. You know what I should do? If there's a phone number there, Margaret, can you just email that to me or text me her number?
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it.
Okay. Because I should call her and tell her that I tell a story about her every single time I teach Ignite. Because I do. I tell that story every single time I teach Ignite because it makes the point, right? And she did exactly what we're talking about doing. She's a perfect example of that.
Handwritten note.
Say it again, Bogdan.
Send her a handwritten note.
Yes, that's another good idea, right? And oh, by the way, a handwritten note also, so I gave you some touches, right? You're going to call somebody the night of the open house. You might email them on Monday. What you also might do on Monday is write a handwritten note saying, thank you so much. It was lovely to meet you. Please let me know if I can do anything to assist you in your home search. And put that in the mail to them on Monday. Because depending on where they live, they'll get that Tuesday or Wednesday. So now you just have one more touch, one more outbound thank you, one more thing that nobody else is going to do, because people don't write handwritten notes anymore, for the most part. All right. So there's your open house discussion. So here's your homework as it relates to open houses. Your homework as it relates to open houses is, if you've never hosted an open house before, figure out how you can shadow somebody this weekend. If you have hosted open houses before, or you've shadowed somebody in the past, it's not too late to still grab yourself an open house opportunity and have an open house on Saturday or Sunday. Right? The purpose of our time together is not necessarily for you to listen to me talk for 2 hours every day for 3 days a week. The purpose of our time together is to then take that information and actually put it into play. My expectation of you 2 weeks from now is that you'll have one more piece of business that you didn't have when we started our conversations. So for how many of you is that already true, right? How many of you have gone out and found one more piece of business in the last almost 2 weeks? Again, my expectation is that utilize all this conversation that we're having to go put it, drive it then, put it on the road, put them into play. Remember, your goal as business owners is to hit your appointment number every week. And if you remember, when we talked about this last week, I said that started right now. So for all intents and purposes, a week has gone by since you decided on that appointment number per week based on the math that we did. How did you do? Put your CEO hat on and grade yourself. If you were supposed to find 2 new appointments this week, did you do that? Did you hit both of them? Are you operating at 100%? Did you hit one? Are you operating at 50%? Did you get 0? Are you operating at 0% of your goal? It's not a judgment. It's just simply numbers, right? Numbers are the language of business, and numbers tell us what we need to be doing differently or what to repeat. So here's how I want you to look at that. If you obtained 0 new appointments in the last 7 days, you need to consult with yourself by looking back and saying, okay, what got in my way? What got in my way of finding my appointment in the last 7 days? And then the second question you ask yourself is, how will I do things differently this week such that I will get the appointment number I need? And then the third question is always, is there anything new I need to learn or different I need to do to make sure I create the success that I intend to create? Maybe it's practicing scripts. Maybe it's actually calling that first expired. Maybe it's hosting that open house, right? Here's what I can tell you. And the reason I'm saying this to you. If what you choose to do is only come Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 4 to 6 and participate in class and then not take any of this stuff, not take any of these ideas or any of these activities that we're talking about and actually start doing them when we're not in session, what you are is a professional student, not a professional realtor, right? And professional students don't make quite as much as professional real estate agents do. Just, I've been both, and I've learned that being a professional student doesn't actually bring home the bacon, right? Don't you have to bring home the bacon? I don't know about you, but when I got into real estate, I needed to make money. It wasn't like an option. It wasn't a choice. I needed to make money. It wasn't a hobby for me. And my guess is for a lot of you, the same is true. All right, Elena, and then we're going to press on to our last 2 topics, which is geographic farming and agent-to-agent business networking. Elena.
Open house question.
Yes,
First,
ma'am.
I like the one that Eric asked in the chat, like for the signs, what's the best idea about the signs? That's going to be one. And second one, do you have some kind of form that you make your clients fill in when they come into the open house? Or is it all arts and crafts? Any agent can do whatever. Like, for example, Ravis had the form. They actually did the raffle for the whole company. So that was incentive for the whoever comes to the open house to fill in the form to give the information, and then they will do the raffle once a year. So do you have anything here, or just so you know that this client is not represented by somebody, is not browsing and being represented, and then you have their contact information? How do you collect that here?
Yeah, so great question. So absolutely. And so let me just go on record as saying that any of you who came from another organization, we have all the same stuff as everybody else does, right? So it's never a matter of do we have that or do we not have it? It's always a matter of A, where do I find it? And B, our version of things is we don't come from a corporate platform, right? And so the biggest difference that those of you who are joining us from other organizations will find in our company is that the corporate platformness, this is the Keller Williams version of an open house sign-in sheet, doesn't exist here. And it doesn't exist here for a very specific reason. It's because our entire business model is built around your brand first, right? Your brand over our brand. So the answer, and it's a great question, Elena. I'm not discounting the question. I'm just giving a broad stroke of real estate companies in general all have the same stuff, right? And so the idea that the main difference with what we offer to you is our expectations are that you're going to locate these documents, and they exist on. I'll have to give you I have to give you the I think they're in the corporate intranet, the Market Center intranet on MyKW. When you go into documents, there are examples there, I believe, but I'll have to verify that for you. And if you have any other questions like that, contact the agent services folks in your market centers, right? Talk to Maria, talk to Adonis about exactly where to find those things, right? And or push out a blast email that says to everyone, hey, new to the company, looking to see if you have examples of what you use, and you will find that you'll get more examples than you know what to do with. The reason I'm saying all this is because we would prefer you to use a foundation and then make it your own, so that the branding and the name that people see is not Keller Williams. If nobody ever says the word Keller Williams ever again, that would be my joy. As long as they say Donna Gilbert and Eric Van Der Winkel and Ralph Russo, right? Those are the names I want them to be saying. And so the materials that you can design should be you first and us second. The state says we have to be there. But as far as I'm concerned, this is all about you building materials that speak to you and your brand, right? Without the corporateness of it. So utilize those foundations and then customize. 100% people are utilizing some forms. However, the other answer to that question that Elena asked is not everybody's using forms. A lot of people are utilizing apps, right? Open house sign-in apps. So if that is something that is more interesting to you, to have someone sign in on an app on your iPad or on their phone, there are apps out there. There are apps out there that don't cost any money, that you can download onto your phone or onto your iPad, that then people are utilizing to sign in. So we have both of those things going on. The question in the chat: anyone have advice as to where to find open house signs? The open house, again, I would speak to your agent services folks, either Maria or Adonis, depending on your market center, and they will give you the, there's tons of places. There's D Signs, there's Oakley signs, there's My Red Store, I think has open house signs. So there's a whole bunch of documents and information, and it is surprising to me that that you haven't received this documentation. And so I asked the other day around new agent orientations, and if you haven't attended a new agent orientation, please do me a favor. Text your team leader and say, hey, when is the next new agent orientation? Because I'll be honest, they're telling me that they're being held, and what I'm getting from a lot of you guys is I don't know where stuff is, and so there's some sort of disconnect that we have to iron through, and I'm certain it's them and not you all. So let's do this. Let's gang up on them together. Let's everybody text their team leader and say, hey, you know what? When's the next new agent orientation? I need a new agent orientation, such that we can get you all the information that you need. Would that be helpful? Yes, Bogdan, go ahead.
Where Stanford was today.
For the Stanford Market Center, there was a new agent orientation today?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess my question is, for those of you in the Stanford Market Center, how many of you knew that it was today and how many of you actually attended, right? So if that's happening, awesome. If it's not, let's just push that to Dan and to Steve, and to make sure that you get what you need.
Just to jump in really quick, Rick, I think it would be helpful if there was a checklist, because when you're new as an agent, it's like a fire hose coming at you and you can't possibly absorb it all. So there were things I even just found out recently, like we all got a badge. I had no idea. We all got free riders. I had no idea. And I've been here 2 years. So if there was like a nice checklist, that would be helpful maybe.
Yeah. Well, and so there is a checklist. So again, I will follow up with our team leaders to find out why you don't have a checklist and why you don't have the things that you need. All right. So again, we're running out of time. I need to get through. Yes.
Can I quickly interject on Margaret's question? Everybody who's new to the family gets an orientation email from Adonis. In that email, there's a 10-step checklist with all the information we need. Just reminding everybody about that. It's very helpful.
Yeah, so do make sure that you're watching your emails as well. All right, so we're going to move forward and run through in the remaining time, and I do have to cut about 5 minutes early this evening, and I apologize for that. Perhaps some of you are thinking, "Oh, thank God!" But I do have to cut about 5:55 tonight. So so as a matter of fact, I'm going to be really rude and ask my phone to set an alarm, so because I really have to make sure I'm on time for a pickup. Set an alarm for 5:55. So when that goes off, I apologize in advance. So let's run through the last two pieces of source of business. Geographic farming and agent-to-agent business networks. And I want to start with agent-to-agent business networks because I think it's a more powerful discussion than geographic farming. Also, please don't forget that we have two different market centers on this call, and market centers behave differently, even though most of the things that we do are the same. So be careful when we're saying that everyone gets this or this is what we're supposed to have, because market centers do behave differently. So just be cautious around that. Do speak to the agent services folks inside of your market center to understand exactly what that looks like for you from an onboarding perspective. So agent-to-agent referral networks, where do you think you could create opportunities or networks with other agents such that you could have inbound referrals coming your way? Ashley.
You could look at where money walks or how money walks. If you track the IRS, for example, and see where people are moving to and from, for example, how Fairfield County is gaining or losing wealth, you can start to locate agents in the areas that are, part of that transition and become a referral stream.
Yeah, I love that idea, right? So there are opportunities for you with outside websites. There's also an opportunity for you inside of Command with the KW referral network, right? Guys, I'm gonna ask that you guys go to your agent services folks to ask these questions. Don't ask it of each other, because you're just going to confuse each other. Go to your agent services folks and ask what the packages are for your market center from an onboarding perspective. And yes, I can tell you they are different depending on your market center. So please go to your agent services folks. I hate to keep jumping into the chat conversation, but it's a conversation that will go nowhere very quickly. So the idea of utilizing metrics that are either, again, from an outside website or from inside of the KW referral network on Command or inside of Command, you can figure out who's moving here and from where, right? That stuff is tracked. And you can start finding opportunities to make connections with people. So say one of those places that people are moving to Connecticut from is Portland, Oregon. Well, then you go to Portland, Oregon and start to find people to create relationships with. I'm going to tell you exactly how to do that in just a second, such that you have a powerful network now of people who might refer business to you the next time one of their sellers moves to Connecticut, right? Because you did the research to show that there's an inbound coming to you from Portland, Oregon. So how would you do that? I'll tell you that when I was new in the business, one of the things that I did was I thought pretty simple, and I'll give you that that program. I encourage any of you to go ahead and do it. I only got through step number 1. I'm gonna give you 3 steps, and I encourage you, especially if you're newer to the business or you're relaunching your business, right? When you're relaunching your business, or at the very start of your business, you typically have more time, right? Because your business isn't at a volume yet. And so this, what I'm about to tell you, takes a little time to do. But again, if you're not crazy busy with current business, you can jump on this and put it in place, and it will start paying you back for the rest of your career. I promise you that. So I'm going to tell you my program, and it will also answer the question of how do you reach out to somebody in Portland, Oregon, and start to create a network with people coming from, who might represent people coming from other areas of the country. So what I did was I took out a map of the United States, and I started in the upper left-hand corner. So I started in the Pacific Northwest, and I just circled the 30, what I thought were the 30 major markets across the country. So I started with Seattle, and then went to Portland, and then went to San Francisco and LA and San Diego. Then I went back to the top, and I skipped Helena, Montana. And back when I was doing this, I skipped Boise, Idaho as well. Boise is actually pretty hot market right now, right? But 21 years ago, Boise was like trees and a river, I think. Right, and so kept moving down and circled, Denver, and then I circled Albuquerque and Phoenix, and so 30 major markets. It gets a little tighter in the East than it is in the West, and yet 30 major markets across the country. And then I just went online and searched for prolific listing agents in that market. So for me, and back in my day, it was Realtor.com. Today, probably Zillow is a better, I hate to say that, but Zillow is probably a better resource for this today than, although you could use Realtor.com. And so I would go to Seattle, and I would find the top 3 agents, which for me was the agents who had the most listings, the top 3 agents who had the most listings. Why was I looking for top listing agents? Yeah, that's exactly right. I could see Alex's lips moving, right? So that's exactly right. They have the clients who are typically selling there and moving someplace else, right? So we want to know who's listing the most amount of properties. And then once I had the top 3, I would just pick up the phone and give them a call. And my conversation went something like this. Margaret, why don't you go ahead and be the agent in Seattle for me?
Okay.
Ring, ring.
Margaret.
Hey, Margaret, this is Rick Scott with Keller Williams Realty in Connecticut over on the East Coast. How are you today?
Oh, hey, Rick.
Hey, how are you doing? How's business?
Crazy busy. I'm sure it's the same for you.
You know what? It absolutely is. It absolutely is. Listen, to that, I don't want to take too much of your time. I was just doing some research online in the Seattle area, and I couldn't help but notice that you are a massively prolific listing agent. So congratulations on the business that you've built. It looks really awesome.
Thanks. I can't complain. It's been good.
Yeah, indeed. Who'd listen, right? So listen, the reason for my call is I'm building an agent-to-agent referral network, and I wondered if you would be interested in receiving any outbound referrals that I had coming your way in Seattle, if I ever have anyone moving from Connecticut to Seattle.
Yeah, of course. We always love referrals.
That would be so awesome. That would be so awesome. So I'm just going to jot you down here, and I'll send you my contact information so that you have it. Hey, and before I let you go, I wondered, do you have at least 2 agents in my area in Connecticut that you would refer outbound business to?
I actually don't really know your area that well. I don't know.
Oh, well, that's awesome. So would it be okay if again, when I send you my information, that you kind of log that and keep me in mind if you have anybody coming my way?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You know what? I can't wait to be able to send each other some business back and forth.
Sounds great, Rick. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, no worries. Have a great year. And again, I look forward to being able to send my first referral your way. Thanks for your time, Margaret. Bye-bye. Is there anybody who can't make that call? Why does it work, by the way?
Because it's a 2-way.
Exactly right. And which way do I talk about first?
Their way.
You offered her something first.
You got it. There's
So
never-
what would you have said if she said if she said she did know referral agents in your area? I'm just curious.
Well, so that was my next question. When I got to the coming back inbound, right, I purposely asked it a slightly different way. I asked if she had at least 2 agents in Connecticut that she sends business to, right? Because what I have found is if you say, hey, do you have anybody in my area? Oftentimes they can say yes. So I changed it to, do you have at least 2? Most people don't have at least 2, especially if it's across the country, right? So then I can get her to agree to kind of add me to that list. And to Jay's point, if I asked Margaret if she had at least 2 people in Connecticut, and for some reason Margaret just knew everybody in Connecticut and said, you know, I actually do know have at least 2 people to refer business to, then I would say, great, you know what? Always room for a third. Or if I wanted to attempt to, so I think in my phone call, I would just simply leave it at that. And then when I followed up with my information, for Margaret, what I might do is I might create a strategy that I would send in my materials to her. When I send my contact information, I might create a strategy that says, hey, just wanted to let you know that I pay 42% referral fees for the first inbound referral, 35 for the second, and 29.5 for all others. Like, I'm going to make sure that she knows that if she has other people in Connecticut, they're not going to pay her 40 or 42%. But you know what? I'd be happy to overpay her one time
Right.
and then step it down to
Right.
try and create a flow of business. Right? That's 10 or 12%, I think, well spent. Does that make sense? Yes, Alex.
Sorry. Command is also great for marking those referral opportunities and creating a smart plan to send out that email that offers that.
Yeah, 100%. Smart plans are a great way to keep in touch with these referral networks, because that's ultimately what we're talking about, right? Because you do that for the 3 people in Seattle, 1, 2, 3. You get the agreement there, you add them to your database. Then you move down to Portland, you do the same thing in Portland, you do the same thing in San Francisco, do the same thing in LA, same thing in San Diego, and just work across the country. By the time I got to the Northeast, right, I had a database of 300 agents across the country in the 30 major markets in our country that I had now permission to market to, and a verbal agreement that if I send you stuff, will you send me stuff? Trust me when I tell you. Remember I told you the Michelle Edwards story the other day, that for 10 years, I just got something once a month, never really opened it, don't remember who she was. Well, that same thing, if you do that with 300 real estate agents, do you see how that starts to build over time? Now, here's my advice, because this is the part I did not do. Once you finish with the primary markets across the country, you go back to the Pacific Northwest and you take out your magic marker or your Sharpie and you circle the secondary markets, the next 30 or 35 secondary markets across the country. So you already have Seattle. Now you're going to go to, Tacoma or Bellingham. You already have Portland in Oregon. Maybe you're going to go to Eugene or Salem. You already have San Francisco. Maybe you're going to go to Sacramento, San Jose, right? More like secondary markets in each of those states. And then do the same thing all over again, right? So that by the time you're done with the secondaries, you've got another 300 or so. And then you guessed it, there's one more step. Then you go across the country and find some tertiary markets. What I have found is that agents who have done this, sometimes they're like, okay, what's a tertiary market, right? For me, a tertiary market is a market that when you look at the name of the town or the city, you kind of know it because you've heard it on the news, or it's big enough that you know it and you haven't circled it yet. Right? So it's not primary, it's not secondary. It almost doesn't matter what that looks like. And then you do the same exact thing in those markets. Guys, when you're finished with this exercise, which I promise you does not take a whole lot of time, you now have a database of close to 1,000 real estate agents that you can just market to every single month with a reminder that when they have someone headed to Connecticut, you're their person. Does that make sense? Does it sound easy? I hope it sounds easy because it really is easy. Here's what I find. I find that I give this idea to every single Ignite class, and so few people take me up on it. I would challenge you, who's going to do that? Who's going to be the one this time? Olena, yes, ma'am.
I want to know if it ever worked. Did you
Oh,
have
my
any
goodness.
business?
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. And again, I only did the first piece of it. It's why I go back and kick myself. And the reason I didn't finish it is because my business started to grow almost faster than I thought it would. Some of it from some of the phone calls that I made. I think it took me about 2 weeks to get through my first 30 markets. Right? So I did a couple hours a day. In 2 weeks, I had my first 300. In those phone calls that I made, so I made like 90 phone calls. So one of those people actually said, I can't believe you called me. I actually have someone who's moving to Connecticut now. Do you service X? I don't remember where it was. It happened to be outside of my service territory at the time. It was more like a New Haven bound referral. So here's what I did. I just referred the referral. People oftentimes say to me, well, you can't refer a referral, so that's a waste. I did it all the time. Here's how that looked. I contacted someone that I knew in New Haven. It was somewhere over there, right? Maybe it was Madison or something, but someplace over in the New Haven area, and said, hey, I have this referral coming in. I have a 25% referral fee to send back to California. I'm not going to service this. It's outside of my territory. I'll give it to you for a 30% referral fee. So if you'll pay the 25% back to my referral agent in California and 5% to me, you can have the business. So I just referred the referral and took a piece of it. Right? Don't let people tell you you can't do stuff. Because I had people tell me all the time, you can't refer a referral. I thought, watch me. So 5% of that $500,000 sale for literally making one phone call and then a second phone call. That's all I did. I connected the two agents. I'll take that all day long and twice on Tuesday. So here's my point. So the answer to Elena's question is, yes, it worked. That was just a simple example of just the phone calls started to get me business. In that first year, I think I closed 2 referrals from those 90 or 100 people in my first 12 to maybe 14 months in the business. And then it just grew over time. So I look back on that exercise and think, man, if that could get me 2 or 3 closed transactions a year, imagine if I went and did the whole exercise. Imagine if I actually had tripled the number of people in my database that I was touching. Imagine if that could account for 5 to 6 to 8 to 10 transactions a year. Man, now scale starts to look a whole lot different, right? If I can get 10 closings from my referral network and I can get the rest of everything else from my other sources of business, 10's not a bad foundation. And frankly, for the amount of work that it takes to get this going, and as Alex said, you just put it in command, push a button, and that smart plan just kind of takes care of the monthly touch. It's easy money. Easy money. Yes, ma'am. Elena.
Does it have to be Keller Williams agents that you find, or just 3 top agents?
Great question. What for me, I was doing this when I was at Century 21, and I looked for the top 3 agents in each market. If they happen to be Century 21 people, great. So my answer to that is that, from a business building perspective, you go with the top 3 people, not necessarily the top 3 KW people. The only reason I would encourage sometimes to keep it in the family is that I have found that when it's inside of the brand, you run into far fewer issues with actually getting paid on referrals, right? So because there's just seems to be more of an honor system in brand than out. And so that's the only reason I might say stick with KW agents. The reality is, though, you may find markets where there's not a strong KW agent, right? You may find a market where there's not a strong KW listing agent, or that there are stronger listing agents outside of the brand. And so I would say, from a business building perspective, go with the strong agents, because they're going to have more opportunities to send more people your way than someone who is lower on the totem pole and just happens to be in brand. Does that help? Eric.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. Just remind me what do you advise to find those top 3 agents, even if they're outside of the KW corporation?
Yeah, just go on Zillow or Realtor.com, right? Type in Seattle, Washington, and then just scroll through. See, nowadays it's even easier, because back when I was doing this, you literally had to go through and count. Oh, okay, Maria Smith, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, with those aggregator sites, on the side of their listings, it says this person also has 4 other listings, or this person also has 17 other listings, right? So they kind of add it up for you. So they did some of the work that I used to have to do on my own. I'm starting to sound like one of those people who talks about, back in my day, we used to have to walk both ways to school, barefoot, uphill, both ways, or whatever that is. And yet, it is true, right? So nowadays, the aggregator sites do more of the work for you. So you can just kind of go and scroll through and see who has the most listings. Here's what I would tell you. Don't make it too scientific, right? Find 3 powerful listing agents in a specific market and just call them. Use that script I gave you, offer them business, ask if they have people in Connecticut, ask if they wouldn't mind staying in touch once a month, and then be done. It's fast and it's easy. And I'm going to tell you, it works. It works. You know why? The other reason it works is because you're doing the work for the people out there who haven't built their own referral networks. So you're doing their work for them by making the outbound phone call to them, right? They'll hang up with you and think, oh man, I hope 75 other people call me today with that conversation, right? They'll be praying that the rest of the country starts calling them. All righty. The other places you can continue to find opportunities to network and meet people are events, right? Certainly KW national events, right? Attend things like Mega Camp, attend things like Family Reunion. Even the digital version has a networking aspect to the platform, where you can go into rooms with people who are from a certain town or a certain state, right, and network with them. You can go into rooms with other people who are luxury focused or seniors focused and network with them. So don't underestimate, just because we're not traveling someplace to meet other people, don't underestimate the power of the digital platform that's been built for you at national events. Because the one at Mega Camp was awesome. I kind of rolled my eyes at it thinking, what is this going to be like? Oh my goodness. It was really awesome. If you like to network, if that's kind of your thing, you could literally find different groups of people who were assembled based on either specialties or demographics or a whole bunch of different versions of communities, and just dive in and meet them. I know a lot of people made money, right? I mean, there are a couple of people in our offices who they know how to work these events, right? They know how to work these events. And just because it went digital this year, they have not missed a beat. They are still finding ways to meet new people online and in these events. So again, attend those events, attend regional events, right? Plug in, do other types of trainings, right? Especially now that trainings are so easy. If you want to find KW agents in some of these spots, go to kw.com and find a market center that's close into, say, Seattle, Washington. Send an email to the team leader or to the market center to say, hey, I just wondered if you wouldn't mind if I dropped in on a training next week. I'm looking for a couple of Seattle agents to be able to send my Connecticut outbound referrals to. They'll give you the Zoom code to tell you exactly what's being trained and when. You'll be welcomed with open arms. So that's a whole nother way you can utilize this kind of bizarro world that we're still in to your advantage. You don't have to get on a plane. When I was new to KW, I used to drive to other parts of the Northeast to meet other people. I drove to Portland, Maine to take a class. I flew to Madison, Wisconsin to take a class for those very purposes, so I could continue to find new people in places that I didn't have people. With the digital world, it makes it a whole lot easier because you can do it from your kitchen, from your dining room table, right? So if you want a fun story, we don't have time tonight because I have to bolt on you. But if someone reminds me to tell the Madison, Wisconsin story, I'll be happy to start off Tuesday with the Madison, Wisconsin story. This one, even Donna and Bogdan, I think, haven't heard the Madison, Wisconsin story. It's a new one.
Yeah, I'll make sure I'll be there.
Yeah, I will tell you, it doesn't paint me in the best light, but it's okay. It's a good story anyway. It's a story that speaks to the lengths that one sometimes has to go to enrich one's brain with new knowledge and information. So I'll tell you that on Tuesday. All right, guys, we will start Tuesday with that story. We will finish up Source of Business. You were emailed earlier today your seller scripts. Your homework for the weekend, other than finding your appointments between now and Tuesday, is to just go through those scripts. I want you to have at least a familiarity with what those scripts look like and what they say before we dive into them. We will talk quickly about geographic farming on Tuesday, and then we will also talk about some listing tools like pre-listing packages and things of that nature before we dive into the listing consultation and those scripts. But all of that will occur on Tuesday. All right, guys, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you. Thank you so much for your attention. 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, Zoom call. Make sure you're on it. And if I don't see you, have an awesome weekend. Take care.
Night.
Love you guys.